It's great to be back on Talk Point again on Lagos Television. My name is Omololu Rosanwo. Today on Talk Point, we'll be looking at ending violence against women. Of course, it may extend to ending violence against men and the boy child and also the girl child. Every November 25 to December 4 of every year is usually assigned as 16 days of activism against violence against women, against men and others. We'll be looking at that today, and I have a guest in the studio that will be discussing that with me. I have Mac-Taiwo, a woman advocate and a girl advocate. Nice to have you on board.
Thank you, Mr. Rosanwo. Glad to have you again. I think we were here last year.
Yes, I recall that you were here last year. That's true. Yes, is that why you're putting on orange?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get to discuss that more. Let's look at the impact of the 16 days activism, which is set aside internationally to end violence against women.
Well, 16 days of activism, it's a global thing. Of course, from November 25th to December 10. It's a day that is set aside to highlight issues around violence against women and girls. And it's also a day that is set aside to call for accountability, commitment, and actions from stakeholders such that they look into issues of violence against women and girls. And it's also a day that is set aside to call everyone to action to unite to end violence against women and girls.
Yes, the 16 days activism against violence has a theme for this year.
Yes,
and that has to do with towards 30 years of Beijing Declaration and the need to end violence.
Yes.
Could you just shed more light on that?
Yes, of course, Beijing Affirmation is 30 years this year. So, of course, we have Beijing, the affirmative action that speaks about women equality, gender equality, that talks about women's rights. So it's 30 years, and it also calling us to everyone to unite to end violence against women and girls. And 30 years down the line, after the Beijing affirmative action, yes, we can say that we have progressed a little as a nation, but it's also a clarion call to see where we used to be and where we are and where we ought to be as a nation and as regards women's rights and human rights as a whole.
Yeah, I recall that the Beijing Women Conference was a global thing. It was a big thing then, and nations all over the world converged on China. That's why it's named Beijing Women Conference. Now, ever since that has been held, looking at the 30 years, has there been a real impact? Because it's a form of assessment now. Do we have a real impact, or is just a scratch on the back?
Yes, 30 years down the line, we can say that we have progressed. We are not where we used to be, even though we are not where we desire to be, but we are not where we used to be. Now you can see women speaking out against gender-based violence. You can see people speaking out. You can see increase in reporting. People are beginning to report. People are beginning to reduce stigmatization a bit. Cultures of violence are beginning to change gradually. We can see traditional leaders, also speaking against gender-based violence and all that. So if we look at it, 30 years down the line, we are not yet there. Of course, my dad will say it's not yet Uhuru, but at least we are not where we used to be. So we can see, of course, we are making progress gradually, even though we have not gotten, to the main end line that we ought to be.
So your own impact is that your view is that impact has been made.
Yes, definitely. Impact has been made. Of course, civil societies have done a lot on this. Of course, government has also done a lot. Now we have the VAP law, Violence Against Persons Prohibition law, that has been passed in about 32 or 33 states. Lagos State now has the Lagos State Domestic Violence law. So we have all that. We have ministries and agencies working to end violence against women and girls across different states. We have more people speaking in this direction. Now we are having, women participation in politics. Of course, it's no longer what it used to be. We are now having more women participating in politics and leadership position, even though we want more. But what we are saying is that we can say, yes, we have some form of success 30 years down the line, even though it's not yet what we desire that it should be.
Yes, because violence, when you say violence, it talks about physical assault. Now, are there other forms of violence that are not physical assault? Which,
Definitely.
Could you just shed light on that?
Definitely. When we talk about violence against women and girls, most of the time people ask, but there is no scratch, there is no mark. That is when it's domestic violence. Of course, violence against women and girls can either be domestic violence, can either be sexual violence, and under sexual violence, it can either be rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment. It can either be economic violence. Of course, economic violence doesn't have a mark, but when you deny someone economic power, economic justice, of course, it's violence. It's a violation of human rights. So these are violence against women and girls. When you deny a girl child education, it's violence against the girl child. When you deny the woman her freedom, when you deny her her position in the society, in the community, it's violence against her being. So these are forms of violence that we are looking at. And because people are used to domestic violence, wife battery, that's what most people are used to. So they tend to say, but there's no mark on your body. But beyond that battery that you're saying, there are so many forms of violence that you may not see the scratch on the body, but the person is being violated emotionally, psychologically, verbal abuse, and all that makes people lose their senses, that lead into depression for women. So these are, it's a lot for women, and that is why we are saying everybody should unite to ensure that we end violence against women and girls.
Yes, you mentioned the VAP law, and from the VAP law has come the Lagos State domestic and sexual
domestic
against
law.
Women, law against the agency. What would you say the agency has helped in doing or in shaping the society?
Of course, DSVA is doing a lot. Yes, they are doing a lot in partnership with other civil society organizations in Lagos State. Of course, Lagos State DV law, domestic violence law, has helped, to curb perpetrators. Once you are caught, you are going to face the wrath of the law. So DSVA is working. Of course, we now have referral centers across the state, both government and private. Non-governmental organizations also have their referral centers where people can go to and all that. So the state has moved from where it used to be. We have progressed. It's like taking it step by step, but we also believe that with more funding, the state can do more. So that's why we're also advocating for fund to end sexual and gender-based violence. When we have more funding, then to a very large extent, the ministries and departments and agencies responsible, saddled with this responsibility, will be able to do more.
If you say you want more funding, where are you expecting the funds from, apart from the government trying to push in some budgetary allocations to the DSVA?
Yeah, when you push budgetary allocations to DSVA, there are so many things that funds that needs to be funded when you are talking about eradicating violence against women and girls. For instance, a woman or a survivor can remain in an abusive environment if she does not have economic power. So that's why many women don't report. That's why they prefer to die in silence because of lack of economic independence. But the moment they know that once the case has been reported, definitely they will get justice. And not only will they get justice from the law, they will also be economically empowered. Do you understand? So she knows that she has a means of livelihood, she has a means of sustainability, she can take care of herself. So she will have no reason to go back into that abusive environment. That is one aspect of funding. Then also for the girl child, when we fund education, there are communities where there are no schools, even in Lagos State. I remember we of course, we have tagged the governor several times writing on this. There are communities where there are no schools, where the girl child will probably have to trek 3.5 to 4.5 kilometers. I know it is not something that I don't know. We enroll them in school, and the nearest school to where they live is between 3.5 to 4.5 kilometers.
So you're calling on the government
to provide
closer.
funding.
It's not that there are no schools, but closer.
Closer proximity. Okay. Lack of proximity to school can make the girl child a victim of sexual violence. Lack of proximity can make the girl child a victim of sexual violence. Lack of economic power for the survivor can make her return back to an abusive environment. So we need government to allocate funds. For instance, we have the Security Trust Fund. We can also have, the GBV Trust Fund that takes care of survivors of sexual and gender-based violence.
Yes, the government, I won't hold fault for them, but there are other competing needs too. Is there a collaborative effort with at the federal level with the state government or the states, as it were?
Of course, there are collaborative efforts, but like you have said, yeah, they have so many things contending for their attention. But when government has political will to do something, it will be done. The moment the political will is there, the moment they see the reason, the need. Why? Because if we don't support survivors of gender-based violence, we are going to have more cases. Violence will continue to be on the increase in the community. Why? Because they will say, if you report, what will happen? After the perpetrator has been punished, after they have gotten justice, beyond getting justice, the survivor also needs some form of support. Medical attention will be there. Some of them may go into depression that they need to be taken care of. Some of them does not even have a means of livelihood. Probably that was what made them the victim of violence in the first instance. So the government needs to look at this thing holistically to be able to end violence against women and girls.
Yes, I know Lagos is in the vanguard of ensuring the eradication of violence against women and men. Are there other states also joining Lagos to do that? Because with that and with the population of Lagos, people keep trooping to Lagos. And are there other states doing something similar?
Definitely, other states are also doing it. Like I said, VAP law has been passed in about 32 or 33 states in Nigeria. So there are other states that are doing something similar. But what we are saying is that they can do more.
Okay.
They can do more because the situation of the country is aggravating some of this thing. So like I've said it here before, that poverty is like a trigger, poverty is a trigger of domestic violence. When there is no money, when there is lack of economic power, when there are no means of livelihood, people tend to resort into violence, especially domestic violence. So it happens. So now you see many children dropping out of school. You see children, roaming about the streets. And before you know it, perpetrators will always be a perpetrator anytime, any day. So they tend to take advantage of that lack of economic power and to perpetrate violence. But the moment the government is looking into this direction, funding this thing, funding education, economic empowerment for women, taking care of the survivors beyond them getting justice, looking into their economic stability, then we'll have a reduced in violence in our community.
Yes, I want to believe that the international organizations like the United Nations, the World Health Organizations also have impact they make in these areas. Are there things that they've also done to join forces with you and the state government to do some of these things?
Definitely, international organizations are supporting, and they are trying, and they are still doing more. And of course, that's why we have the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals 1 to 16, and all that. So international organizations are doing more. But the point is this: you understand your problem. We understand our peculiarity as a nation. So we should be able to sit down and look at our laws and look at those things that support, that aid violence in our community. And we should look at it ourselves and eradicate them. International organizations cannot do that for us. International organization does not live in Ayabo. They don't live in Omololu. They don't live in Bariga. They don't live in Abeokuta. But we are the ones that understand our norms, our traditions, our systems that support violence, that aids them. So it is our leaders, both at federal, state, local, traditional, community level, that will sit back and look at this thing and say, we need to remove this, and remove this from our culture, from our custom, so that our nation can have a sustainable economic development.
Now, from what you have said, I'm looking at a situation where some traditions, some cultures do not support women, and they tend to relegate them. Now, from the advocacy level that you have gone into, how has been this? Has it dropped? Do we find more people in those cultures supporting women to be more empowered?
Okay, on Friday we had 16 is, I think tomorrow is the 16th, I think day 14 on Friday we were at Bariga with one of the traditional leaders there and some community members. And I remember we were speaking about girl-child education. And the question was directed to a man. And the man said, he has to train his girl child that because he understands that he will get old and he will also need the girl child to give back to him. So it means if he does not train her, how will she be able to give back to him? In as much as we have some cultures and traditions that are still against girl child education, of course, advocacies, sensitization, community dialogues and all that is on the increase, and we are beginning to engage these community leaders to see the benefit of girl child education on the nation and even in the community. Because if the girl child is not educated, like you have rightly said, it's as good as you are working with one hand and leaving one hand behind. So you cannot truly achieve development. You cannot really get to where you are going if both hands, the boy and the girl, are not educated.
Yes, I like to also ask, because most times we tend to promote or advocate for the girl child, the women. We neglect women. Women also get violated. The boy child also gets violated. Now, in situations like this, although we find rare cases where the boy or the man will come out to say, my wife has violated me, my wife has beaten me, or stuff like that. We seem to be finding some cases. Are we advocating for the man and the boy child too?
That is what culture and gender custom stereotypes has done in our community. When you see anybody can be a victim of violence, but we find it more in the case of women and the girl child, because the boy child culturally has more opportunities than the women, culturally, because it's a patriarchal system. You and I know it's a system of patriarchy. Even in some families, this is the girl, you call the son, the last one, the head of the family, and the son has about 5, 6 female that are older, far older than him. But even if the boy is 2 years old, you call him the head of the family. And I ask myself, what happens to this 31-year-old woman in your family, that it is this 2-year-old boy or this 3-year-old boy that will now begin to make decisions for the family that you see as the heir of the family? That is what happened when we embrace culture and customs that does not aid development.
In situations like this, don't you think I'm not holding forth for them, but they would say they're the ones carrying the name of the family, that the woman is to get married. Does that make sense?
And if the woman gets married, does that change her root? It doesn't change her root. If the woman gets married, she's economically empowered, she takes care of the family. She's also responsible to the family. So being married does not change the fact that she's from that state, and being married or being a native or a daughter or a son of a particular family, and after being married does not change your DNA. I'm sure you get what I'm saying. It doesn't change your DNA. So it doesn't change the fact that, okay, I'm Molanike and Mac-Taiwo. It doesn't change the fact that I'm the daughter of Kuforiji. It doesn't change that fact. So it has nothing to do with my intellect. It has nothing to do with it. So it does not, being a girl child does not affect my intellect. Being a girl child does not affect the 2+2 that I did in school. I did 2+2. My brother also did 2+2. So when you were going to mark my scripts, you didn't use a lesser grade or a lesser curriculum for me and use a higher curriculum for my brother, the boy child. So if we should look at it we should put it on a level playing ground. Every one of us should have equal opportunity, equal access to funding, equal access to finance. Okay. So when we deny one and place one above another, then that is violence against the women.
Yes, on a final note now, you're putting on orange. Yeah. Why orange?
Well, orange represents a world free from violence. Free from violence. So let's embrace peace, let's unite. free from violence.
Yes, I want to thank you so much, Mac-Taiwo, an advocate of women, the girl child. I hope you also add the boy child and the man to your advocacy so that we can also have say in whatever you're pushing.
Of course, the VAP law covers everything. It's violence against persons.
Okay.
Not our violence. The VAP law is violence against persons prohibition law.
Okay.
So it covers everybody. So if a man is being violated, the man should open up and also speak up.
Yes, on that note, we have come to the end of Talk Point. I want to thank you so much, Mac-Taiwo, for being part of Talk Point again. 767 and 112 still remains the lines to always call. In times of emergency, stay out of trouble, ensure you do what is right so that Lagos and indeed Nigeria can get better. I am Omololu. See you some other time.